biggest tax cut in the country in 100 years when it's all said and done. And it's going to have a tremendous impact on the economy. Joining us now to explain it all, Republican Congressman, 7th District of Virginia, Dave Brat, an economist, has a PhD in economics. Dr. Dave Brat, good to have you with us, sir.
Hey, John, good to be with you.
Okay, tax cut passes the U.S. Senate. Now what happens? Explain the process.
Yeah, so now we go to conference, and you got to iron out all the wrinkles in between the House bill plan, the Senate bill plan. I can run through some of these real quick, but I'll just tell the leaders, your folks go out to the Daily Signal today, and they have a great chart that summarizes. Heritage Foundation, they summarize the differences between the bill. But on the individual rates, we currently have a ton of brackets. The House got it down to 4 brackets, and then the Senate jacks it up to 7 brackets. The standard deduction basically stays the same. It increases the standard deduction of both. Single people up to $12,000 doubles it, and married couples $24,000. That means the first $24,000 of your tax of your income is not taxed at all, and that applies to everybody. And so people want to know, why are millionaires or whatever? We're not lowering their rate as much, but everybody gets that $24,000 no tax. It's just the way the tax system works. Then the big controversial one is going to be the state and local SALT deduction. That we got to work through that one. The House bill and the Senate differ on that. Pass-throughs is how we treat small business. The House plan didn't go far enough, in my view. You and I talked about that quite a bit. The Senate plan improved upon that and treats the small business gets a lower rate on the first $75,000 of their income and some other good moves. I'm obviously for that because my whole district is small business, and I've been fighting for small business since I've been up there. The corporate rate goes down to 20%, and we got to make that permanent, and we got to make it kick in right away. Expensing capital equipment, child tax credits. House had $1,600 credit. The Senate upped it to $2,000 credit per child. International tax rules are pretty too complex to get into. And then Obamacare taxes, that's a big one. The Senate repeals the individual mandate, and the House does not. And so I'm obviously in favor of that one. And then other than that, those are the biggies. But we're going to have to get together into a room with the House leaders and the Senate leaders, and we'll have a horse trading on those elements I just mentioned. And hopefully in a week or two we come out of that room and say, here it is, Mr. President, please sign this bill, and then we get tax cuts for the new year.
Well, that's the goal, getting the tax cuts done by Christmas. One thing about the Senate plan that I hated was putting the corporate tax cuts off until 2019. Dave, I think that's a major mistake. Are you guys in the House going to be able to fight to get it in for 2018?
Yeah, and that, you're right on that. That's a big deal. We had Art Laffer up a week ago, and he was instrumental on writing the Reagan tax cut provisions. And if you remember back, Reagan now is known, right? The Kennedy period and the Reagan period both got tremendous economic growth, which, by the way, shows this can be bipartisan, right? The Democrats used to have pro-growth people like JFK. But anyway, in the Reagan years, we delayed and phased in the tax rate reductions. And what happened? We had a recession, terrible recession, 81, 82. And then, boom, once the tax rates were done phasing in 83, you get tremendous economic growth right off the bat, right? So, and it's kind of like, why would you go into a store and buy a shirt when you know it's going to be on sale next week? Well, you wouldn't. You're going to wait till it's on sale, right?
Right.
So you don't phase in those rate reductions. You got to do that right away. Let markets know this is a done deal. You can make your business decisions based on hard information that you know. And so that'll probably be the main thing. I'm going to fight for the small business and then I'm going to fight for that. We do not want to phase in this stuff or put it off a year. We've got to get that in year one, period.
Now, I also want to ask you, Dave, on this tax bill, the differences between the House and the Senate. I think the $2,000 deduction per child versus $1,600 makes a huge difference. Are you going to be able to keep that?
Yeah, we'll just see. All of this stuff adds up. That's always the trick. And so we want to do as much as we can for the middle-class family with kids, and at the same time, it can't break the bank. So, and the Democrats, this is the first time they brought up the deficit in 10 years. And so they're bringing up spending and deficits on us, and that'll be part of that debate. But, yeah, you're right. That does make a huge difference, especially when you lose some of the other deductions that the upper middle class is going to have to contend with in terms of some of the SALT and those kind of things as well. And so, we'll do our best on all of those, but it's going to be a tight one. And the Democrats on the deficit piece, I keep saying this so people know, but go Google the Progressive Democrat Caucus. Their budget and tax plan raised taxes by $10 trillion, raised spending by $11 trillion, and has more debt and more deficits than the Republican plan that cuts taxes. So we put more money back in your pocket and less deficit than the Democrat plan, and our plan will produce economic growth. Everybody agrees with that. It's just how much. The Democrat plan would put you in an immediate recession. There's no doubt about it. And so I always encourage people, when there's going to be bits and pieces of this plan. Hey, I love that part. I don't like that part. But compare apples to apples on this one. The other side of the aisle, increasing your taxes by $10 trillion. And that's not theoretical. It's not some budget. You got 107 votes, the most votes, and a majority of Democrat votes for a tax plan that increases taxes by $10 trillion. So it's hard. It's hard to comprehend how we're having a hard time with elections in Virginia right now when it's this clear.
Congressman, let's get to growth. The CBO says that for every 0.4% of growth in GDP, you add $1 trillion to revenue. Explain what that means.
Yeah, it just means that economic growth, which they don't teach in K-12 education, by the way, is the most important thing in the universe, except for God. I mean, I went to seminary. It's kind of a joke, but it's kind of not. Mm-hmm. If you get economic growth, that's what allows you to feed your family. That's what gives you electricity, health care, everything we take for granted. In the Richmond Times-Dispatch today, there's a nice op-ed by the paper saying, "Hey, there's a lot of good things going on in the world right now, and a lot of good things are going place in the world. Right? Global poverty is down, nutrition is up, global health care for the poorest of the poor is up. Just a lot of good stuff. And why is that? Because all these other countries are moving toward free markets, when the United States is moving away from it. I mean, it's numbing. And so thank goodness we got Republican control now. We're deregulating markets. That's already had an effect on economic growth. And like you just said, all you need is 0.4, right? Less than 1% additional economic growth from this plan, and it's for sure going to do that. And why can I say that? Because the mainstream media a year ago said, You can't get more than 2% GDP growth, right? This is the new normal. Just get used to it. We're just like Europe. Order your croissants and, et cetera right now. And we said, no, well, America's different. We're exceptional, and we're not going to put up with this. And so we're doing tax cuts and deregulating the economy and getting rid of all the bureaucracy and sclerosis in the arteries. And guess what? We're growing at 3% right now for the last 2 quarters. Mm-hmm. And the Atlanta Fed has us at 3 to 4% growth in this quarter. And so not only did we say it could be done, it's happening. So I don't know how much more evidence you have to give, but if you need even more evidence, when 2 senators sneeze on the tax reform bill, right, when there's 2 votes that are going down, that means we're not going to pass tax reform. And what did the market do every single time? It went down.
Right.
Immediately, down by hundreds of points.
Right.
And what does the market do every time it looks like we're going to pass the bill? And when we did pass the bill, it hits record highs every single time. So the folks out there, they're being fed a lot of political nonsense by the mainstream media, who's just horrified that the Republicans are back in charge and making progress.
Mm-hmm.
And so I encourage people out there, and especially the young generation. The young generation is very intellectually honest.
Mm-hmm.
They want consistency. Young people can smell it a mile away when someone's giving them a load of baloney. And so just go Google this stuff and see who's telling you the truth, and then make up your mind on that, right? Follow the people who are telling you the truth right now, because this is a big deal for your generation especially. If we don't get this debt paid down, your generation is going to get crushed. And so I taught college for 20 years. I went into this job to help the next generation. So I encourage them. I don't want to tell you what to think. You go look it up yourself, and you'll find Professor Brat never lies.
Professor Brat never lies. Okay. We have a question from Laura in Chesapeake who says, I'm concerned about the repeal of Section 117D5 of the IRS Code, which would significantly affect the tax liability for graduate students. The House bill repeals it. The Senate does not. What is Dave's opinion of this section being repealed?
Yeah, good news on that. There was a grad student section that in the House bill, it had some confusing language in it about stipends and et cetera. And so what it would do, and it was new to most of us. We didn't know that section was in there, but it would have not only taxed the value of the stipend, right? When I was in grad school, you get a stipend if you taught the undergrad students. But it would also tax the full value of your graduate education if you were getting that thrown in the deal. But all schools have to do now is call that a scholarship instead of the stipend, and there's no tax consequence. So at first, a lot of people got excited about that. I've checked in with my office. That's our best understanding right now, but that will not be a significant change. And also for the seniors out there, I went to a couple senior homes recently, and the seniors were very concerned about a Medicare piece, and that has been changed in the Senate language as well on expensing for senior health care with folks who are on Medicare. That provision has been fixed up as well. So that's the way it's supposed to work, right? It goes, you put it down on paper, and then no one's perfect, and you fix up the holes. And they fixed up a lot of holes also on the business side. A lot of businesses had major league concerns about a lot of technical things that really do matter. There's a million different business models, so it's not one size fits all. And so we made a lot of good corrections. The Senate has come through and made a lot of good corrections, and now we're going to go put the best of the best together. And hopefully in a week or so, we got a home run.
Well, that's what we hope. Dave, I want to get to the plea deal with Michael Flynn on Friday. Retired General Michael Flynn. He lied to the FBI, which is illegal, and he's now made a deal. But nothing that came out has anything to do with collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. Nothing. Zero. What's the deal here?
Yeah, well, it is confusing because the mainstream media was basically doing cartwheels and, giggling like, junior high kids when they thought they had some news. And the ABC News guy, I can't remember his name, got in trouble and got basically fired for 4 weeks for giving such horrendous headlines that were false. And so you're right. The scope of this thing, they're on a fishing expedition, and they caught him in a lie having to do with something that didn't have to do with the campaign. It had to do with the transition. And it's not even clear what exactly happened there because the mainstream media misreported it so badly. But, we'll get into all that. And so it's not uncommon for the head of national security to be checking out with the nations who are the biggest, security threats. And so we have to wait for evidence on this. And so far, it's not clear what that evidence is. But we're just going to go from here, right? I mean, they're on a fishing expedition. They're trying to open up his testimony and weaken him and his kid to put pressure on him to reveal other information about the Trump administration. So that's what's going on. And if you're on the Republican side, it's just fairly amazing that after the Hillary email stuff and the Uranium One stuff, where we sell 20% of our uranium to our arch enemies, there's no hearings on that right now, but we're having a hearing about something to do with the administration of Trump after the election, right? And so this was supposed to be about the election and collusion with Russia in the election cycle. And so far, no evidence on that at all.
Zero.
So that's about where we stand.
Zero evidence. The premise of the special prosecutor was to investigate collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. And the way that would work is during the campaign, some senior official from the Trump campaign talked or had correspondence exchange with a Russian government official. And what this would be is the Trump official says, campaign official says, help Trump win the election and we will change our policy towards your country. That's right. Collusion, Dave. Calling up the ambassador of the Russian Federation during the transition is what the hell you're supposed to do. That's your job.
Yep.
And when you're on the transition team, you're not a private citizen. You're a paid government official. The transition, those people are paid for by the federal government. Your tax dollars pays that. So right. They don't have anything here.
No, that's right. And so it's unfortunate. We'll see about this lie. I mean, they're hanging it all on the lie, and you don't know whether that's a lie. There's been a bunch of pieces like this that have been overturned after you find out what the true facts are, and so we're not even sure what the content of that is. But we'll all be digging into this. We want to assure the American people that there is no collusion. And so in one sense, it's good because the left has just whipped the country into a lather on this issue. And it's like you're guilty until proven innocent. And so the Republicans have to do a lot better job of messaging. And, I mean, for us, it's just stunning. Our leadership needs to do a much better job of fighting on these issues for the sake of our justice system.
All right, Dave, we're out of time. I want to thank Congressman Dave Brat for being with us. More information, go to davebrat.com. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network.
Thank you, John. Feel better.